this person was elected Speaker of the House, which is the second most powerful position in the American Congress. The problem manifests when he puts a fanatical twist on the whole thing. That the Bible is the only truth, and the soul is its legitimate source for public policy. There shouldn't be one dominant church or religion or whatever, like the Church of England was when the people left and came to America. But there should be religious principles incorporated in the government. Cultivation of spiritual knowledge, self-control, austerity and simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, aversion to fault-finding, forgiveness. Those are divine qualities.
So the backstory of this thing is that there was just quite a extreme, you could say, so-called Christian or Christian who got into, I don't know how specific we should be. We could be specific. He got the Speaker of the House in the United States, the new elected Speaker of the House. He has quite an extreme view on things, and so we thought that would be a nice example to bring up. Maybe you can introduce it better than I can, actually, Valakia.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, that this person was elected Speaker of the House, which is the second most powerful position in the American Congress, next to the president, and he's a very strong Christian. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no problem there. But the problem manifests when he puts a fanatical twist on the whole thing. In other words, there's a long article that we're referring to about this. And not that it makes any difference, but he's a Republican. And they're the conservative party in America. And again, nothing wrong with that. We're not finding any fault there.
No,
but
yeah.
When he was asked how he will rule, he says, when asked on Fox News how he would make public policy, he replied, "Well, go pick up a Bible off your shelf and read it. That's my worldview." And again, there's no problem there. If you really understand the Bible and your worldview is the teaching of the Bible, then that means you accept God as the supreme person, and the world is his creation, and everyone in the world is his children, and that, one should be understanding that he should be pleased with the actions, that policy should be made in accordance with his desire for all of his children, and et cetera, et cetera. In other words, there's no problem with that. Well, that's not a problem.
But it also includes policy should be made with taking into consideration all his children, despite their faith and despite their beliefs, and even atheists, whatever. Like all the God's children, whatever they choose, are still God's children, and their freedom should be respected. Right?
Yeah. So the problem arises when, the view is that the Bible is the only truth, and the soul is its legitimate source for public policy. In other words, it's this idea that the Bible is the only truth, Christianity is the only religion, and therefore it has to be like that. So it's fundamentalism, or scriptural originalism, as they describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And therein lies the problem. So America is a secular government, right? It's a secular society, which means separation of church and state. So there can't be, according to the concept that people have, there can't be any spiritual interference or basis or foundation or talk about spirituality in connection with the government. Government has to be non-spiritual, non-God, basically atheistic.
Yeah.
The government has to be atheistic, and then you can be spiritual if you want or not. But the government, which makes the policies, has to be atheistic. I mean, basically, that's the bottom line concept.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. And so they're finding very much fault with this new Speaker of the House because he wants to create policy according to Scripture, but only the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Only the Bible. The Bible is the only book, the only truth, the only authority. And God is a Christian God, and only so.
Because, yeah.
That's the problem.
Because just like when I read this article myself, I was first like, oh yeah, this sounds like a reasonable guy. I mean, I didn't read it in the depth. I didn't really analyze it or reflect on it. But when he said that the Bible is my worldview, I was like, well, I could say that with the Bhagavad Gita. I could say that, I'm going to try to make my policies according to Bhagavad Gita. But then like you say, the problem arises when you say that that's the only truth. And that's like not the same as you would find in other scriptures. And then,
yeah. He also declared that he says, we don't live in a democracy, but a biblical republic. So again, it's the Bible is the only word, and you have to adhere to this. And another problem is many of people in this position that he's taking don't really understand what the Bible says anyway. They say this according to the Bible, but they don't understand the message that the Bible was delivering.
Right.
And they take it out of context,
right.
just due to lack of understanding, and make it some, fanatical interpretation.
Yeah,
they don't see the overall truth there.
I wonder what they would think if they listened to our last podcast episodes on the heart of Jesus. If I don't think
they probably
wouldn't.
What did they think if they listened to this podcast?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Well, there's something we can discuss further. I mean, that's just like the lack of actual spiritual foundation in terms of a teacher or guidance. Yeah. But anyways, we can discuss that later. But yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why America became a secular society.
Mm-hmm.
From the basic kind of the beginning.
Well, from the beginning, it was.
And it was.
Was it like religiously based?
Well, yes, but here's how it all went down. The people who first came and founded America or whatever were from England. Let's just talk about those from England, where the Church of England was the absolute authority. And so there was no room for other thought, other beliefs. It was like, no, this is the only allowed philosophy. And so if if people weren't in that, they were persecuted. I mean, it was not only just not cool, but it was like persecution took place. And so the ones that came from America, I mean, Martin Luther was one, and there's some other ones. And the reason they were basically coming to America, their motivation was to escape this religious persecution, because they had a little different view than the Church of England had.
Yeah.
So therefore, they were in danger, really. So they came to America and they wanted to found a new society where there wasn't some dominant religion forcing them to believe only in this way or be persecuted. So that's why they said, okay, let's separate church and state. So there can't be one dominant church that makes public policy and runs the government. So let's just separate the two. But as you said, mentioned, kind of referred to, those early founders were Christians. They had very strong religious principles, but it wasn't one dominant religion or faith or denomination, if you will, because that's how they divided denominations, like there's Catholics and there's Orthodox and there's, the Protestant whole area of Christianity, which is the Methodists and the Baptists and the Presbyterians and the Lutherans and, the Episcopalians. And there's a lot of Protestant religions within the Protestant category. And they are separate from the Orthodox or the Catholics. But they're all basing their teachings on Jesus' teachings. But they have different views and different versions. And the Church of England was one of those. See? And so they wanted to make it so that didn't happen in the new country.
But I mean, that was very modern.
America.
That's a very, that's like a lot of creds to them to be able to see beyond their, us versus them and our team, just to see what's the best for the country and for creating union.
Yeah, so that was the reason they had this separation of church and state.
Yeah.
But if you know a little history about when the Constitution of America was being written, at one point they got stuck. They couldn't agree on something. And so the leader actually told everyone, okay, we're going to adjourn the meeting. I want everybody to go home and pray on this and then come back tomorrow and we'll continue. And because, they were oriented in this direction, they did. They all went home, prayed to God to help them get through this hurdle, whatever it was. And they came back and they solved it and continued on. See? So God was a big player in the whole thing. And so the whole Constitution and Bill of Rights and so on was basically under that influence of spirituality.
Yeah.
But of course, as time went on and spirituality, diminished in the whole concept of God and pleasing God and following his directions, kind of, diminished, and so therefore the policymakers didn't have that foundation of pleasing God and wanting to do what is right according to God's eyes. And so therefore it became, degraded more and more. And now we got, the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And people are so determined to not let God enter into it in any way. And that's why they're having such a problem with this House Speaker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a public outcry against him,
Yeah.
not just by one or two people, because, this is spiritual. This is, you see, they're labeling him a theocrat, meaning theologian, spiritual, but he's openly declaring Bible is the only way kind of philosophy, which we don't agree with.
Yeah.
That would mean all the Vedic scriptures that we, always studying and practicing and trying to give other people the same opportunity to know this knowledge are forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
You see, according to him, this is not acceptable. And that would include any other scripture, the Quran, or, like I say, the whole Vedic literature or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's not acceptable because God is present in his teachings wherever they are to be found. And his teachings are absolutely the best for humanity at large, wherever they are to be found. And so there's no fanaticism. In the Vedas, there's no fanaticism. And one reason is it's not a conversion philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
See,
like
it's a philosophy where you have the choice to decide.
Yeah.
We won't make you a Vedic follower. Here's this information, and if you see it as valuable and the Lord in your heart confirms that this is true, and you make a choice to live by this teaching, wonderful. But if you don't, that's your freedom.
Isn't that also based on a proper faith and a spiritual foundation in terms of if you don't have that, if you're afraid that, you don't trust the supreme person, that he will guide them correctly. So you have to arrange everything. So you have to scare people. You have to use all these tactics and, scare people from make sure you don't go to hell, or, if you don't surrender, you will go to hell. And instead of, I mean, I'm just saying, it seems like that only proves a spiritual weakness or a lack of faith in the so-called spiritual people that should have faith in the supreme person, and then he will guide you correctly and everyone correctly.
Right. And yes, that's absolutely a good point. And it also points to you don't want people to have a choice because you think they'll make a bad choice.
Yeah.
So they don't have freedom to choose. You take away their freedom to choose.
So that they won't choose the wrong thing. Yeah.
Nothing, atheism,
Yeah.
or to follow the Vedas, or to follow the Quran, or to follow the Bible, you see, and choose who they want to, teach them.
Mm-hmm.
See, it takes away the freedom because God gives everybody eternal freedom to choose, to deny him, to reject him, to do whatever, accept him, love him, serve him. Everybody has that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have this other situation, we're afraid they'll make the wrong choice, which is, what they said are the only choice. And then we must not allow them to have that.
Mm. But it just seems like, I mean, I don't know if you want to say something more to this, but the big thing here seems to be, I've never seen a societal system that could be based on religious principles without that, having this one church on top that is ruling. And it's it seems impossible to have such a system. And I totally understand the people who are afraid of this guy, for example, because he to them represents, that's representative of God and religion, and it's fear-based. I mean, I don't know if it's fear-based. I didn't read that in the article, but it's at least fanatical. And I understand their allergy towards fanaticism because you don't want to be.
And so do I.
Yeah.
And I would, because, if his policies were in place, then what we do would not be allowed.
Yeah.
See, it would be against the teaching. because it's not biblical. It's not coming from the Bible. It's coming from, another source. So it's got to be wrong. But what is the real understanding of how a government should be run? And we have historical accounts of perfect governments on planet Earth under the Vedic system, and that was perfect. And the citizens were perfectly taken care of. It was like every citizen was seen as this ruler's children, not just, his immediate family, but all citizens were taken care of as if he were the father of all of them. And with love and care, he took care of them, materially and spiritually. And the society prospered unbelievably. People were completely happy. All the laws of nature that control everything in the material world were in harmony with the well-being of every aspect of the planet, so to speak, and everything was good.
But just like a little question, when you describe that, like, was everyone then a follower of God? Like, was that why there was harmony? Was everyone, I mean, you could argue, well, it was harmony because no one was an atheist. No one believed in anything else. It was just like a big homogeneous group that everyone believed in the same thing. And of course, there's harmony.
Well, there were always deviants, and there will always be deviants. Just like we were talking earlier from the beginning, there's always been a deviant consciousness. And, we have to remember that people are coming from past lives and past situations, and it could have been, many, many, many lives before. You see? And so they bring that rebellious, deviant consciousness into a society. You see, but it wasn't allowed to run rampant, and there was checks and balances. And just like in any society today, there's certain behavioral traits and activities that aren't allowed, that aren't accepted. You can't murder. Okay, that's not allowed. You can't do that. Or I'm going to kill everybody. No. We have a system that says you can't do that, and there's a law to back it up. And there's prisons to place you where you will not be allowed to disrupt society, or rape and theft and all the things that are obviously not good for society, not good for anybody. Then there's restrictions on that. See, so there's always going to be deviation, and there's always going to be a need for restrictions. But the restrictions were made out of love and care. This is not good. We can't allow you to do that.
I have to read something. I mean, if you can finish, but I have to read something. And if you
go ahead. No,
we always. I hope we mention it, but. I hope we mentioned it before, but Jesus the main message of Jesus was love the supreme person and love others, right? And that was the main two commandments. He said, my first and foremost commandment is that you love the supreme person with all thy heart, all thy being. And the second is like unto it, that you love your neighbor like you love yourself. And so and then it says in Matthew 22:40, he says, on these two commandments depend the whole law and the prophets. So just like the law that you said depends on these two commandments of love the Father and love your neighbor.
Yeah. That's the thing. So on that understanding, and Jesus had perfect understanding, of course, because he was, the perfect representative, had perfect understanding of the one he was representing, the Lord himself. So then the question will be, well, what kind of society should we have? Should we have this secular separation of church and state and stand on that alone? And yes, but with correct understanding. There should not be one dominant religion, we'll use the word because that's how people think now. There shouldn't be one dominant church or religion or whatever, like the Church of England was when the people left and came to America. Yeah. But there should be religious principles incorporated in the government. And those in the position of making policy and law and taking care of the people and, directing and guiding the country should have those strong religious qualities and principles to be able to do it in the best way for the good of everybody. You understand?
Yeah.
So I want to read from Bhagavad Gita the qualities of such a person. If a person were qualified to be in that position, he would have these qualities. Let's read a few of those.
Like a political leader, or a spiritually oriented political leader that should.
Well, spiritually oriented, yes, that possesses spiritual qualities.
Yeah. Okay.
Bhagavad Gita describes that. And remember, Bhagavad Gita is the Lord himself speaking. And he says it like this: fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, and the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities belong to men endowed with divine nature. Now, if anyone can find fault with any one of those qualities, that, oh, no, that's a bad quality, you shouldn't have that, then you would have to justify why it's a bad quality. Because in our hearts, we all know that every one of those qualities would be beneficial. Every one. And it happens all the time. But let's say you are going to marry a person, which is a big step. You're committing yourself, if as it should be, to a life with this person. Would you like to find a person that had all those qualities? Freedom from envy, forgiveness, truthfulness, honesty, and the list goes on, you see. Freedom from fault-finding and
anger.
And you can't find anything that you wouldn't like to have in your life mate. See? Freedom from the passion for honor, freedom from anger. How about that? Would you like to have a person that's going to be your life mate that was free of anger, non-violent, and so on, see?
Just
charitably disposed. So what is wrong with those qualities? Everybody would like to find somebody like that. So the more of those qualities a person in the position of leadership, or the people in the position of leadership, be they in government, be they teachers in schools, be they parents, whatever their position is in society, the more of those qualities they have, the better they will be in their position.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, who can say, no, no, no? I wouldn't want somebody with those qualities to lead me, to guide me, to take care of me. I want people with demoniac qualities. I like the envious people and the jealous people and the angry people and, the exploiters and those filled with lust and greed. You wouldn't think like that. That's insane. You see? So there should be a government that has people in the positions of authority that have all those spiritual qualities, but not under one banner. And if you don't believe like this, you go to hell.
It's like, I mean, I just like, it seems how to make that happen, but that's maybe another story. But it's like people, we all have this built-in unfortunate tendency to belong to a team and to like have this we versus them. I'm right and those people are wrong. Like I'm good and those people are wrong. It's very black and white, unfortunately, in today's society.
That's a part of false ego.
Mm-hmm.
We just read, freedom from the passion for honor. I'm on the winning team. Ours is the best. We're the good guys. Like you say, you're the bad guys.
Yeah.
And every religion, quote, due to lack of these true qualities, has their name for those who aren't on their team.
Mm-hmm.
They're either called infidels or heathens or karmis or savages, and then a whole host of other names. Because you're not on our team. But if you join our team, you're no longer an infidel or you're no longer a heathen. Now you're one of us. But if you leave the team, then you're back into one of those categories.
Uh-huh.
So it's all about culture and society and upbringing and education and yeah, like you say, how are you going to have that? Because we don't have that today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem,
Mm-hmm.
you see. But there are individuals who have this amazing understanding and vision and knowledge and condition of consciousness and heart. And every single one of those that would, however they may get there, get in a position of leadership, it will be so beneficial. So beneficial.
Yeah.
And it would be a definite struggle for them to do very much because people wouldn't allow them to do very much. That's the way these democracy governments are set up. Well, we can't allow you to do that. See? But they could do what they could do. And people that have these qualities are very influential on other people. Because underneath all the bad is good. The soul is pure by nature.
Yeah.
Deep within every person is good. The demon, the murderer, the rapist, the worst guy you can envision, underneath all of that, there's a good person. And so a person who's really, personification of good brings the good out of people.
Right. Yeah. And it resonates.
The people who are not in that condition, they bring out the bad.
Yeah.
They fortify and nourish.
That's true. That's
bring
very
out
true.
the bad.
That's very true. That's exactly what you see in today's politics. Like, I mean, like this person we're speaking about. I mean, he has definitely many good qualities in his wanting to implement biblical, let's say spiritual teachings and try to follow spiritual teachings. However,
yes.
Yeah, it's not.
That's the thing. So he, he is as he is, and we honor him for, being a, follower of Jesus and the Bible and so on. That's good. If he could just tone down the fanaticism aspect of it.
But
But
just like where, that was one thing I was thinking I would ask you before when we were planning this, that like, where does this way of seeing a Jesus and Christianity come from? Like this person, is this a fruit of Christianity, being like the Bible is the only truth? Like how is this, or maybe it's not a fruit of Christianity, it's just a false ego, a person who is covered by false ego and also wants God in their life. That is like this mix.
Well, the truth is they're not real Christians because Jesus didn't teach this. I mean, you just read what Jesus taught. Didn't say anything about any fanatical thing. It's just like, and he wasn't speaking to just he was speaking to everybody, across the board. Every person should love the Lord with all your heart, mind, entire being. And then, and only then, can you truly love your neighbor as yourself. So a lot of people are saying love each other, love your neighbor, but they don't want to love God. So they leave out number one, which makes to implement number two impossible. Because if you don't have number one, you can't really love your neighbor as yourself. But it all goes back to teachers. Who is the perfect teacher? Well, God is the perfect teacher. Jesus was the perfect teacher. And then those who perfectly understand and become real devotees of the Lord and Jesus and understand their message because it's revealed to them in their heart by God himself and from their teachers, then they're qualified to teach. And they do not teach fanaticism. They preach against it. This is one of the main things that they will denounce is fanaticism. No matter what philosophy they may be speaking, whether it's from the Bible or from the Quran or from the Vedas or whatever, a true teacher of those will denounce fanaticism among those who supposedly are following these teachings. He said, no, that's not right. My spiritual master has always denounced fanaticism. And when one person under his care started acting fanatically, he quelled it. No, that is not right. You must not be like that. This is fanatical and it will produce nothing good. So the bottom line is, if you don't have the right qualified teachers, then you'll get something else than what it should be.
But one of the things that our spiritual teacher said is, this spiritual love is real religion. A truly religious person is one who is actually experiencing surrender in love for the Supreme Lord. That's what he says.
Yeah.
So that's
a religion. Now, he didn't say any denomination.
No.
He just said a real religious person.
Yeah.
Spiritual person.
Yeah.
And again, that's just like Jesus said, across the board. That's everybody. Whoever that is, it doesn't matter what they call themselves. If they call themselves this or that, they're born in one country, another country, and, it's transcendent to all those temporary designations. And so, therefore, it's perfect for everybody.
Yeah.
And surrender to God is can you read that first part again?
This spiritual love is real religion.
Keep going.
The spiritual love is real religion. A truly religious person is one who is actually experiencing surrender in love for the Supreme Lord.
Yeah. So that's transcendent to all these temporary designations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what Jesus said, right?
Yeah, I mean,
so the true teacher is one who understands Jesus' message.
Yeah.
And not only understands it, but lives it. That's his life. Just like this person in this position of the House Speaker says the Bible is his worldview. So the true teacher says Jesus' words are my worldview. God's words are my worldview.
Right. But yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So,
but like we read before in Matthew's, the law that you're gonna make and uphold, it depends on love for God and love for others. And love for others is obvious that I mean, it's freedom. I mean, just I would just want to read. This is a continuation of what our spiritual teacher said. He said, Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Hindu, and so on. These are all names of the world and disappear with the dissolution of this world. But real religion is eternal. Real religion is love for God. If one can obtain this holy love for the Supreme Person, he will automatically please Jesus, Krishna, and all the saints, prophets, and demigods simultaneously.
Perfect. That's the vision right there.
That's what to say, you know. These are all.
So if you've got such a teacher, then your vision can be perfect also. So that's the crucial point, and that's the teaching of all truth. You must have the perfect teacher to become perfect. Yeah.
Maybe we should chat. I don't know. I have a couple of quotes, but I don't know. I mean, there's one quote that maybe I could read, because I've never really fully understood that, but I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about. That's when in Matthew 7:21-23, and it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles?' Then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. You have failed to do the will of my Father.'" So,
yeah.
I mean, this kind of it looks like this is a summary of, I don't know what this, I can't judge anyone, but, you know, anyone who tries to be a Christian and they have this fanatical view that, I mean, they're trying to do everything in the name of God, but Jesus says, "I never knew you." Why does he say that? And to which people does he say that? And why?
Because they never really surrendered to God. They never really surrendered to God. But because the name of Jesus is so powerful, they could do the things they described doing: cast out demons, heal people, and doing it in Jesus' name, because his name is transcendental, fully empowered name, because he's fully transcendental and empowered by God. But they never really surrendered to Jesus. And so, I mean, to God and Jesus either, obviously so, or he wouldn't have said that. See? So they can do all kinds of things, but not really surrender to Jesus or God.
Yeah.
And so he says, "I don't know you. You did all these things, but I don't know you. Failed to do the will of my Father." See? To surrender to him, you know. And so at the time, you know, that it all happened, he just said, "I don't know you." I don't know you. So there's many people who are proclaiming all these things and maybe having tangible external results of healing or casting out demons or gathering lots and lots of people and followers and, bringing in lots and lots of money. And, it looks like they're absolutely successful. But are they? I mean, love for God is a very personal thing between the individual and God. It's a condition of love between the supreme person and the person who's saying they love God. But God knows that. Jesus knew that. That's why he made that statement. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at the true lovers of God, they never say they love God. Lord Chaitanya was so overcome with love for God that, he displayed symptoms of love that have never been seen before. And yet he says, I don't love God. He said, if I loved God just a little bit, I wouldn't be able to live. But those, who don't love God, they can, but look what we did. Look at our activities. How can you not let us into heaven? Or how can you say these things about us? Because look how good we are. And he said, no, I don't know you. Mm-hmm. So it's understood in that way.
It points to the importance of, if you're following the Christian faith, become a real Christian, which means surrender to God. There's no necessity to surrender to your religion or to your temporary label or to the church or whatever official organization. That's not what it's about. Like, we have to see beyond those, right? Like, it's a way, it's a system to help you cultivate your spiritual love, which is love for the Supreme Lord. And it's a practical, organizational way to do that. But it doesn't mean that surrender to the organization is love for God, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's beyond team spirit. We're on the team.
That's like our spiritual teacher said, people sometimes get angry at us because we have no team they can join, It's like, how can I join you, I really like what you're saying. Where can I join? It's like, I don't know. You can. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, many times we tell people there's nothing to join. If you want to come and associate and, chant and, hear this truth and incorporate it into your life, you're 100% welcome, but there's nothing to join.
Sorry.
Because people like to feel like, I just joined and now I'm saved, or I'm okay, or, I'm a member of the group. And it's, a lot of people are looking for group support. There's all kind of groups other than spiritual groups, and people are members of groups often because they want the association, the support, the feeling of belonging, and, running away from loneliness, and et cetera, et cetera. But at the time of death, the group can't help you. Being a member of the team can't help you. What is your relationship with the Lord? And that's the only thing that matters at that time. Is there no relationship? Is there, a pseudo relationship? Is there a real relationship? That's individual. And nobody can do anything about that. That's you. That's with you and the Lord. And you and Jesus. And yeah. And a lot of times, when the Lord or Jesus doesn't fulfill the desires of the Christian, they get angry. They lose faith, they lose trust, they, are angry and disappointed, and I did all this, I declared my allegiance. Just like these guys, they're angry at Jesus. Didn't we do this? Didn't we do this?
It's true.
He said, I don't know you.
It's true.
You think they were very happy about that?
No.
Not even.
But he just said the truth, by the way. That's another point. Like Jesus just said it like it is. No fear. Just like this is how things are.
And again, that's a true teacher.
Exactly. It doesn't shy away from it.
They're not trying to flatter anybody. They're not trying to act in a certain way that everybody will like them. They just teach the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus didn't go around and those people he knew didn't like him and say, oh, I'm sorry, you guys are okay. And, maybe we can just get along. And he didn't do that. He just spoke the truth.
To the end.
Sorry, I offended you. No, he just this is the truth. No compromise. All there is done with intelligence and compassion and care and so on.
Yeah.
So, it's not like you're just in somebody's face for the purpose of being in their face.
No.
And to exhibit your superiority or something. It's not like that. But anyway, the idea of this whole thing was, I guess, back to this original concept of how a person should be when they're in a position of authority. They should, as much as possible, emulate all these wonderful qualities. Let me just go over a few of those again, because these are spiritual qualities that are so rare, but so, beneficial for everybody.
And
There's
just
nothing negative about it.
And this is also so we can recognize those symptoms, right? So we can know, and so we can also, we all can vote. So if we see those qualities in a person, I guess that's a good sign that this is a reasonable person.
Yeah. And we should also desire to have those qualities.
And inspire others to have them. And the more we do that, but please read them.
So I'll just read them a little bit slow. Fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, austerity and simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, freedom from the passion for honor. Those are described by the Lord himself as divine qualities. So, we can hope that everybody has those, at least some semblance, but we should also try to have those ourselves. It's easy to project everything on somebody else. It's so hard to just take the responsibility of myself developing those qualities or trying to, see the value and emulate those qualities. And when I see the opposite, I should recognize, no. This is not good. This is not correct.
Yeah. It's very true. It's easy to point and look at others' faults. It's hard to look into ourselves and our hearts.
Yeah.
It requires much more.
What does he say? Why are you worried about the speck in your neighbor's eye when you've got a log in your own eye?
Yeah.
Mm.
A log.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, Ruben. So, yeah, I think
Mhm.
we'll have a little chat.
Yeah.
What mantra would you like today?
Haribol Nitagor.
Did I go hardball also?
That's included. Yeah. In any order you want. I'll leave you the freedom to choose.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor. Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor. Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor. Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor. Haribol. Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor.
Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo, Haribo, Nitaigor, Nitaigor, Haribo,
Haribol Nitagor. Nitagor.
Nitaigo, Nitaigo, Haribo. Haribo.
Haribo.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for
Thank you, everyone.
taking the time to join our podcast.
Thank you, Malakia, for.
And always, we like for you to send in your comments, etc. Share it with others, and like it and subscribe.
And come back next week. And I'll see you next week also, Malakia. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Haribo.
Namaste, Ruben. We thank you. We thank, of course, Slava and our Chintamani team here for their participation as well.
Yeah. Haribo. Namaste.
Haribo.